Joining me now is Claire Armstrong, national political reporter at the Daily Telegraph. Claire, great to see you tonight. The Treasurer made it very clear today that he would be putting stimulus ahead of surplus as we look forward to the October 6 budget.
Yeah, it's a huge change for the Liberal Party to have gone through when you think that 12 months ago they were gearing up to deliver their first budget surplus, the policy that they ran for election on at every election basically. And today the Treasurer announcing that that's not only not going to happen, but it's not even the goal. The government will be focusing on creating jobs, getting the economy back on track and growing in any way that they possibly can, and to do that, that has got to have absolutely nothing to do with a surplus. So it's a big pivot, a big policy pivot for the government, and as well, they're not even looking at paying down debt at the moment. So very much focused on stimulus spending and creating jobs to get our way out of this recession.
Claire, rip a yarn today from, well actually last night, from Andrew Clennell, Sky News political editor, who blew the whistle after an RTI application on exactly what's been going on between the federal government and, of course, the Victorian government when it comes to this massive issue around hotel quarantine and the disbursement of ADF personnel. I mean, I've read the letters, I've looked at Clennell's report. It seems pretty clear to me that the Prime Minister offered up ADF personnel on a number of occasions, but today Daniel Andrews is still sticking to his story that that never occurred. What do you make of all this?
Yeah, it's been a really tricky one, and it's one that I think is really frustrating the public, because particularly people in Victoria still in lockdown, they tune into press conferences wanting to get information, but there's really also a responsibility of the media and everyone involved to find out exactly what it was that led to the disaster that that state now finds itself in. And one of the key issues is who knew what and was responsible for what in the hotel quarantine system that obviously got out of hand. And so this letter that the PM sent to Premier Andrews with that offer of assistance, specifically offering Defence Force personnel, not just for the broader COVID response assistance, but for that hotel quarantine. I mean, we can't say for sure whether that would have stopped the virus entirely getting out of the hotel and spreading through Melbourne, but given that the offer wasn't taken up, that help wasn't accepted, you have to wonder exactly what was going through the Premier's mind as he again today said that the help, hadn't been offered when it's clearly in black and white.
And Claire, senior ministers Martin Pakula, Lisa Neville and Jenny Mikakos, they've got no idea who made the decision, nor 7 senior bureaucrats from police commissioners to head of health departments to head of the Premier's department. They also are in the dark. You're right. I think a lot of Victorians right now would be incredibly frustrated at the fact that no one seems to be able to establish where this problem first arose, because it's a bit like Australia pushing so hard to establish what happened out of Wuhan with the virus. I mean, we want to establish what happened so that it doesn't happen again, and I think it's incumbent upon Andrews to find out exactly how this happened so that it doesn't happen again.
Yeah, especially given that Victoria, the numbers are looking a lot more promising. There's a bit of light at the end of the tunnel after what's been a really difficult few months. And while I don't think anyone expects the hotel quarantine inquiry to completely overshadow that good work and the good result that they're seeing now, we're still months, if not potentially never, going to find a vaccine. So we need to have all the information at our disposal as to how we have incidents like this, because if we're living with this virus for the foreseeable future, we don't want to see a repeat of what happened in Melbourne happen anywhere else.
Now, these Chapter 11 bankruptcy laws, the Treasurer today indicating that sort of the concessions around that will continue, which essentially means that small businesses will be able to continue to trade even though technically they're insolvent, as a way to keep them afloat during these particularly challenging times.
Yeah, so the government introduced a bunch of temporary measures to keep businesses going while they were getting, no customers or not being able to sell or trade. And now coming out the other side of the lockdowns as JobKeeper and other supports like that start to wind up, the government's decided it'll push ahead with reforms to basically let particularly smaller businesses, we're not talking about the bigger end of town here, but mum and dad businesses with 20 or less employees often, will be able to, instead of going through a really costly voluntary administration process, which sometimes the cost and the burden of that alone sends the business under, they'll be able to work one-on-one with an expert who will advise them on how they can pay down their debt and keep their business going, not have to hand over the reins. And it'll be a really important lifeline for a lot of businesses who are viable. They just have not been able to have customers or sell their goods because of the lockdowns.
Claire Armstrong, always great to see you on a Thursday night. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.